Welcome to the Daily Report. Thank you so much for staying with us. I am George Maringa, still right here. And as I had informed you, we are tonight tracking service delivery to Kenyans with none other than the government spokesman, the Honorable Dr. Isaac Mwaura. He's already here in studio. Welcome, Mheshimiwa.
Thank you, George.
And karibu to your debut of the Daily Report.
Thank you.
Asante sana. And I'll begin by, we've seen what the president has announced today about the NYS, the increase. Of course, last year he did say that the number will be increased, but today there is a new development on the firearms training. What exactly may have informed that idea?
The president, first and foremost, I'm happy to be here. It's been quite some time since I was on TV47 in general, but this is the first time that we are on this show. Yes. The president is looking at how to ensure that we increase, our own self-defense, and we have a lot of, young people who go through NYS. In case they are called to service, then they would be able to provide that kind of security. The NYS graduates, they demonstrate, how they can use a weapon using the shovel. I mean, it's quite interesting. It should be something better. And so I think that's what they need to look at, because they can also be used for national security. But NYS has come a long way. It's good to say. For example, when I was in the National Assembly, I started inclusion of youth with disabilities in NYS, and I'm happy 10 years on, that this program is still going on. So hundreds of youth with disabilities have also been included. And also NYS has become somewhere where you can rely on people who are disciplined. So you could see now even we have programs of countries like Israel, in Australia, and such other jurisdictions that require ex-NYS people to be recruited to go and work there. So it's a very good training ground for future bureaucrats and administrators and people who are known to be having proper work ethics. Yes.
The issue is on the firearms. Would that, negate and change the meaning from a service to quote-unquote a force?
Not necessarily, because even police is a service.
Okay.
Yeah, it's service. These are servicemen, really. For all intents and purposes, the NYS is a military training without the use of weapons. Yeah. Yeah.
Indeed. And, along the way, we've seen you've had attempts, of the Thursday addresses, in your office regarding what government is doing. How are you handling the high demand for accurate and authoritative information in this day of freely accessible information, especially by Kenyans?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, George, and thank you for asking me. So we have been having weekly pressers on Thursdays, and we've done over 60 press briefings since I took office on 4th of October last year. So I've been in this office for 10 months now. This is the 11th month, culminating on 4th of September.
Yes.
So by 4th of October, God willing, then we'll have done 1 year. And we've seen transformation, really. You cannot say that many Kenyans now don't know that there's a government spokesperson. We've had actually 47 key achievements. I've had to set up the office from scratch because it was at the Ministry of ICT. It was returned back to the President's where it originally was. And we have had to really do crisis communication, the Embakasi Inferno, the El Nino rains, the March, April, May, all those kind of things that we've been able to do within a very short period of time. We've also been able to ensure that now people are able to know what government is doing, increasingly so. I just did my last press last week, which was focusing on the youth employability in terms of those who are retiring from public service, the Ajira program, and we'll be continuing on until we get to people to understand what is it that this, President Ruto's administration has been able to achieve. But be that as it may, now we are taking a twin-track approach. There is content that you will see that is not necessarily branded from government, and Twitter trends and all of that is coming from my office. You may actually never know that comes from my office, because we need to also be very keen on a daily basis. News is only news for only 24 hours. There's information overload. People are trying to get, this and that. Everybody is now communicating because it is now liberalized. Everybody has an account. it's personalized, and you need to speak corporately for government. So we have agreed in principle that the primary sources of information are the ministries. So there's a spokesperson for a ministry is a minister, and for a state department is a PS. But then the work of the Office of the Government Spokesperson is to speak for the whole of government on cross-cutting issues.
Okay.
So you'll see my press statements will be having 3 or 4 issues, while a ministerial statement will be addressing 1 issue. The other thing that also is clear is that we have to keep on ensuring that it's information warfare. You've got to provide accurate information when it is needed, because before it will take long before you process information. You'll be reading newspaper of what happened yesterday. Today is real time. I don't think newspapers are really providing news, maybe in-depth analysis.
Mheshimiwa, at the same time, there seems to be a trust deficit, and I'm sure you've seen that, especially from these Kenyans that still consume whatever you're saying in terms of what government is doing. How are you handling that with your office? Because Kenyans seem really not to trust this government. You've had comments of tone deaf. You do not know what's happening on the ground. How are you, mitigating that situation?
I think believability.
Okay.
And people will start to see when people also beneficiaries of what government is doing. There's that believability, but also consistency, because we must tell the people what is happening. The trust has also been eroded because of misinformation and disinformation. Sometimes also people want, the same way they want news yesterday, they also want development yesterday. But things in government take a little bit slow of a process. It's a bureaucracy. And of course, eventually when they mature, then people are able to reap the dividends. I think that is the instant, coffee kind of mentality. With Wi-Fi and, communication has really, really made people to know a lot, which is very commendable. But at the same time, there is also that lack of patience. But my office, therefore, is trying to build that trust by ensuring that whatever we pronounce ourselves on is factual, is accurate, and is verified. And that, I think, for me, has gone on very well so far. And I believe that we'll continue to do it. However, there has been this branding of government, deliberately as not speaking the truth by our competitors, by a cynical, public. Remember, President Ruto is only in power now. This is the 23rd month, because he was sworn in on 13th of September. And so, therefore, he still has time. We need to give him time for him to deliver. So we cannot just expect that all of the problems that we inherited from previous administrations that have not been resolved will be done in less than 2 years. It's practically impossible, because a government takes about 12 to 36 months to settle. And you can see also there have been various disruptions. There was drought. There was the issue of linear rains. There was the issue of the March, April, May rain. Now we have the issue of the protests, and there were other previous protests before, and we are still in a post-COVID era. It's just, I think, in 2023 that we were able to resume fully the academic calendar, if I get it right there. So I think that is something we need to look at. We have also inherited a country that is full of debt. Really, but trying to get out of doldrums. And now also people not wanting to really pay more in terms of taxation, yet also they still want services in an expanded government, and also with a very young and restless, population, where you have about the median age of Kenyan youth is actually 20 years old. So we are one of the youngest countries in the world.
Did the government then, Mheshimiwa, overpromise, so that then there is the issue of you do not know what project really to attack and to really handle to its extent? There is what you inherited. Also, Kenyans will tell you, whereas you inherited that government, they also inherited the repercussions of it all. So, do you think then that there is quite some harmony in that opinion?
George, to him who much is given, much is expected.
Okay.
We did, when we came in the year 2022-2023, we did what we call a government roadshow. So what did we do? We audited the whole of government. We have a very robust report that clearly showed what are the ongoing projects, what are the stalled projects, and what are the projects under the better plan. So it's very clear to us, and that is why we came up with revenue-raising measures that if they had gone through, then they would have enabled us to bridge the gap instead of over-borrowing. But now we have to have a kind of strike a middle ground between borrowing and also ensuring that we do not also overburden the taxpayer.
Okay.
And then of course you borrow, but you have also to stimulate the economy, George, so that you have new avenues where people can actually make money and wealth. And therefore, of course, hopefully, you can also get more, sources of government funding. So I think it's a tightrope. Was it anticipated? Yes, from my development economics background, and also having served in the National Assembly as Committee on Budget and Appropriations for 3 years, having been the Vice Chairman of Finance and Budget Committee of the Senate, I can tell you without a doubt that way back in 2014, I myself, Isaac Mwaura, clearly had seen that whoever was to be president in 2022 would have no country to run. So President William Ruto has done extremely well because people had written us off and they were actually thinking that we will not even survive 6 months. We are here almost 2 years later. So I would want to promise to Kenyans that there is every intention to fulfill all of the promises. Not maybe in the faster manner that we would have wanted before because of the exigencies of the moment and also the realities of running a public office and government, but we are very much intentional. That is why, for example, SHA will be rolled out 1st of October.
Yes.
Apart from the court cases and water view. That is why affordable housing is already now going on. And we'll be having by December, even some of the people getting into these houses, if not earlier. We've also had the situation, for example, of the digital economy. We have all of the hubs there that have been launched everywhere, digital jobs, over 516,000 jobs. We have, of course, if you look at the issue of fertilizer, and the way the unga, we cannot doubt that unga is now less than 200 shillings, is 100 plus, and that was a promise. So food security is a big issue that we promised. So all of the 5 pillars that we've spoken about in terms of housing, in terms of health, in terms of digital economy, in terms of agriculture and food security, you name it, including even MSMEs. The Hustler Fund has now been rolled out. And over millions of Kenyans have been able to benefit. So there will be teething problems, but we believe as a government that we are on the right track to securing our manifesto and ensuring that then the country is stable. And I think that is not in doubt.
Okay.
We have a very hardworking president. We have now a new set of ministers, 50% new, and they've been deducted even today. We were having, for example, discussions with the Ministry of Health under the leadership of the Head of Public Service, Mr. Felix Koskei, on how to ensure that we deal with the issue of MPOX and also how to ensure that SHA works. Last week, we had the similar issues to do with the new funding model. You had a president yesterday directly engaging in a town hall. And you'll be seeing more of us going mashinani. There was a time my office spent a whole week in Nakuru. We had town halls, we had engagement with farmers, so that people are able to understand what is it that government is doing for them and what is the value for their money. We've
seen, you've mentioned MPOX, Mheshimiwa, and there is the KUCO, the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers, has said, the government, the country is not ready to handle this. What is the status in terms of the preparedness should Kenya start reporting cases of MPOX?
Already some of the cases have been reported. I think that is not something that we should try to deny.
Okay.
But we have been handling them very well. Otherwise, it could be COVID-19. I mean, it will be everywhere. So I do not agree with the statement that we were not ready to handle. Because if we were ready, how come then we have been able, at least to the extent possible, and not having this widespread? So I think the issue is that we need to be patriotic and optimistic. Even when sometimes there is evidence to the contrary, that we can still rise again. You remember there are some people who are saying that in Africa, bodies will be dropping. I mean, there will be dead corpses all over because of COVID-19. Yet we were the most resilient continent in that regard. So I think we need to be optimistic.
Yes.
We need to be ebullient in terms of how we look at issues and ensure that we cooperate. I would want to expect that the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers would be coming forthright saying, in spite of what is obtaining, we are ready to help in this manner, not to say that we are unprepared. We, as a government, are very prepared to handle such a crisis, and we are not calling for others. But even then, even if that were to come, we, as a government, will be able to handle them.
Yes. Talking of, crisis, Mheshimiwa, there has been a conversation that the government seems to be listening only when people strike, when people take action. The Gen Z protests, the Kenya National Union of Teachers, airport workers, tea farmers, matatu owners, university and college students, is that, the modus operandi is the government seeming to listen when people take action in their hands?
I think I'm very happy, George, you've used the word seeming.
Yeah.
Because politics is about perception. And perception is a production of communication. I don't think so, personally. I don't think so. We have always been listening. The president listens. The government listens. And we take action. And there's a feedback mechanism that we even have. We even have an app that we are rolling out called Pasha, where you are able to get information and feedback, because communication is two-way. So we are listening, and I don't think it's fair to say that only when people are striking is when we take action. It may appear so because it could be a crisis, issue at a crisis, but we have done so many other things in boardrooms where people come and raise their issues amicably, and we're able to resolve them. Just like, for example, we didn't have to have the teachers strike. It was resolved. Now children have gone to school. And we must really commend bodies like Kesha, who came out very strongly to support the children will be safe in this environment.
Strikes or the threats of strikes?
Well, even if it was a threat, it was averted. That means we are listening. If we were not listening, it would have already been on course.
When are we expecting to see communication or feedback regarding the hundreds of youths who have been arraigned in court, but you haven't seen officers or law enforcers during the Gen Z protests, during the protests that have also been here for a while? Why haven't we seen any police officer arraigned in court, yet we are seeing young people being arraigned in court?
I think, to be fair to you, I think there are some people who have preferred charges against certain police officers. Let the due process follow. I mean, let the rule of law follow. We cannot just say it's like a mob lynching, that let's also now go for police officers so that we can be even. I think that is not something that would be good. Then that's an eye for an eye. If there is a justiciable case and it is very well investigated, it will, of course, be brought to book. None other than His Excellency the President has pronounced himself on that one. I remember very well when he was giving a part of his cabinet, he actually committed himself when he was mentioning that police also who have been found culpable should also, there should be some action. But you can't just say do it because others are already in court.
What about the abductions? What's the government position on that? Whereas there are still more reports, even last week, of families that are reporting in Kitengela that their kids are still being abducted, despite the government saying that, police officers, the law should, take its course. The CS saying during his vetting that, it is the prerogative, it is not the standing of the police service as a whole. There is...
I think we need to investigate the claims. And then they should also be channeled in a correct manner.
Okay.
I don't want us to sound alarmist. Neither do I want to say that there is no justification for such people. But at the same time, I don't see the reason as to why, at this point in time, there should be such things such as abductions by the police. For what reason? Okay. In any case, we cannot, confirm for sure whether these things actually did happen. And if they did, I think any action will be taken to remedy such a situation going forward.
The compensation for families, the president said the government would compensate. How is that?
That is also ongoing. If you look at compensation, there are many forms of compensation. There would have been like the Embakasi Inferno, the Maimahiu. All of this have to be channeled within a framework. We remember even there are those people who are removed from the riparian areas. They have all since been compensated. The 10,000, I know quite a number of them who have called me directly to say, yes, we were able to receive this kind of money. So let us also see to it that will actually be done in due course, because we keep our promises as government.
Okay. Now is the government, that you mentioned it, accounting for the deaths that were witnessed during
the correct figure of those who died during the protests can only be ascertained by the police. The media was actually speculating and trying to inflate the numbers, and I think that is not fair. It's unpatriotic. The official figures are from the police. That is the standard procedure in government. It is our stand as government, so that we rely on that. But we cannot just say, like, remember there was this euphoria that there is a mass massacre in Githurai. Even the police were attacked. In fact, I have an officer now who's joined my office. He was narrating to me today how they were even stoned by the people because they were incited. Yet in actual sense, there was no such kind of thing as massacre. I think people wanted some kind of mass hysteria, and so that people then take to the streets, and the aim of those who are trying to do so are trying to overthrow this government, this constitutionally elected government. I think it's not fair. for such that to have happened. We need to also protect the sovereignty of our nation, and even be very careful not to be interfered with externally, because we give room to propaganda when you want to inflate the number of people who've died. I remember when the time I was briefing the nation about the deaths of people in Mai Mahiu. There was even one government official who went to say that there were over 300 deaths. Yet in real sense, the numbers at that point were actually 46. So I think just to create news, I think it's important we be a bit careful, and so that we don't also behave like bloggers, or people who are just tweeting without any recourse. The government has a way of verifying any information that is raised to the public.
Do you feel the lack of patriotism is coming, there is a void? People do not feel like they own or love this government. Is that an opinion that you would share?
Yes, I think, George, because it's not so much for the love of the government.
Okay.
Because no government in the world is popular anyway. I can tell you, as the 5th government spokesman, defending government is not an easy thing, because people tend to accuse government even when there is no rain. They would say government has to do with it. I think, George, what is happening is that the love for the country. And that is why my office has started Uzalendo initiative. Patriotism. The patriot, Isaac Mwaura, is saying, mimi ni Mkenya mzalendo. Je, wewe? So we need to go back to that, so that people can be wajivunie kwa wazalendo wa nchi hii yetu ya Kenya. But you find people would want even to denigrate the standing of our nation just because it fits a political narrative. Really, fellow Kenyans, there is no country in the world that has ever developed when people are trying to sabotage themselves. So I think that is it. The younger generation, the Gen Zs, the Gen Alphas, we need to speak to them. Just recently we were at Buruburu Girls High School. We had a very good time about that. We were at Menengai, school. We have been to several Githurai schools, I think 5 of them together. We'll continue with that, because we need to really amplify this Uzalendo, so that people can own it, and the country can resonate with that, one of the key national values, in my opinion, that if it is implemented together with the nationhood, Utaifa, we'll be able now to move many people in terms of their own philosophy, in terms of their own commitment to securing that which is of national public good, rather than seeing it as an opportunity for them also to enrich themselves, or actually just anarchy, destroying things for the sake of it, George Maringa. So I think that is a serious challenge we have as a nation. I think if we start this conversation at home, let people speak to their children, and let's also entrench this. We are already doing an ethics curriculum. My office, together with under the office of the head of public service, we are doing so that we are able to get senior public officials and cascading downwards, espousing this element of patriotism.
Absolutely, indeed. We are watching the Daily Report. You're still with the government spokesman, the Honorable Dr. Isaac Mwaura. We are taking a short break. On your screens are the SMS number, the 22047. The WhatsApp number is also on your screen. We'll also have an opportunity to be able to forward your questions, your comments or feedback regarding the program tonight. On X, I'm at George Maringa _. The spokesperson is at Mwaura Isaac 1. You can also
at spokesperson GOK.
At spokesperson GOK, or at TV47 News as well. Use the hashtag Daily Report, hashtag Power in Politics. We're back in a few minutes. Do stay with us.